Hey everybody, Simon Rosenberg from Hopium Chronicles. And just as we head into the weekend, I just wanted to share some thoughts about where I think the race is and where things are today. Sorry, I got a little bit of a cold. But bottom line here is we should all feel good about where we are. We got a lot of work to do to win this election, but the way I like to think of it is that we're winning today, but we haven't won it yet. And if we all go out and do the work together, we can win this thing in November. So let me give you some sketch of how I see things going today. Number one, we have to just continue to reflect on the remarkable performance of Kamala Harris and her remarkable campaign. The degree of difficulty of what they're trying to pull off is incredible. She wasn't running for president a few months ago, and she had to step into this role as vice president, take over, become a candidate, develop her story, narrative, and that she wanted to tell it to the American people, take over a campaign itself that was built for another candidate with other staff running it. She had to consolidate the Democratic Party around her, which she did almost immediately. It was kind of an extraordinary set of circumstances that happened. Then she made a really wonderful and unorthodox but successful pick of our vice president. We had this remarkable convention. She kicked Donald Trump's ass in the debate in a way that was really, I think, a defining moment in our politics. She just gave a really compelling economic speech this week and continued to put meat on the bones of what is a very forward-leaning, opportunity-based economic strategy that I think has been very successful for her. It is, and she's now leading in the polls, and we are favored to win this election, in my view. This has been an amazing thing that we've all watched, and I think it's sometimes in the day-to-day scrum, we can't always look. If you take a step back, I think we have to acknowledge that what Kamala Harris has pulled off over the last couple of months has been historic. They have not only taken over, she was down 3 points we were down 3 points when she got into this race. We're now up 3, 4, 5 points in the national polling. And she's done all this without making any major mistake, despite the degree of difficulty of this. Her campaign has not made a major mistake. Their rallies are unbelievable. They're the best produced, most inspiring political rallies that I've seen as a Democrat in all my years in this business. In so many ways, we're witnessing a politician who's really rising to the moment in a time when the American people really needed her, and a campaign that is rising to what she needed as well. And it's just very inspiring to me sitting here as somebody who's been in this game for a long time. Number two, the polls. We should feel really good. I mean, last week we had a series of serious national polls showing Harris up 4 to 5 points. We had the Economist YouGov poll, we had Morning Consult, we had the ABC News, the NBC News, the CBS News. These are serious independent polls, all showed her up 4 to 5 points around where Biden was in 2020. And that strong polling has continued this week. We even had two, again, serious independent polls, or two serious polls, the Echelon poll and the Ipsos poll out in the last few days, showing her up now 6 to 7 points. Even, the outer range of where she is grew a little bit this week. We've continued to have incredible strength in Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. I mean, we did have we've had some polls showing things tied in Pennsylvania, but we also have had in the last week now 5 polls showing Harris up by, 6 polls showing her up between 3 and 5 points in Pennsylvania. And the truth is that if we win Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, and we get the blue dot, because we also got the blue dot this week, we know definitively the blue dot is going to stay the blue dot. Then we're hovering around 270 right now already. I mean, that's the map, right? That's the lockdown, is getting those 3 battleground states in the north plus 270. But the other thing that happened on the map this week is that North Carolina got much harder for the Republicans. This Robinson meltdown is a huge deal. And Republicans have been telling reporters that Trump wins by winning Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. And, Pennsylvania, the polling has actually been really good for us. North Carolina, we have been ahead or tied in a majority of the independent polls in recent weeks. And we've now had the Robinson meltdown, which I think is going to make it very, very hard for Trump to win, because he's the leader of the Republican Party in North Carolina. He's not some fringe marginal figure. He's the lieutenant governor and the gubernatorial candidate. He is the most prominent local Republican politician in North Carolina. There is no way this is not going to create corrosion and brand damage across the entire Republican brand, including for Trump in North Carolina. And even in Georgia, we just got a Fox News poll today showing Harris up 3 points. Nevada, we've continually been ahead in all the polling there. We are much closer to 270 than they are. Trump has really no good news in the Electoral College, in my view, at all. And even though there have been a couple bumpy polls in Arizona, we just got a Morning Consult Bloomberg poll today showing us up 3 in Arizona. So I like the map that I'm seeing when I look at it. We're not where we need to be, but we're a lot closer than they are, and things are trending in our direction. The Senate, I think if you had told Chuck Schumer that we would be where we are today in the Senate 18 months ago, he would have taken it. They have failed to make any of these battleground Senate races competitive. We continue to lead in Ohio. Sherrod Brown's up by 2 to 3 points, and Moreno's had a really bad week in Ohio. And the way I view Montana and the way the Senate views Montana is that Montana is still competitive. We're not trailing there or losing there. There's been no independent polling there. All the polling we've had there has been Republican polls of late. The DSCC and the Senate folks believe this race is still competitive. We're not giving up. And there may be an opportunity to go steal one of these other 4 Senate races that are hanging out there. And we'll see if the whole party moves in that direction. I think the things that the DSCC did this week were a first step. They're not fully in yet. And we'll see. But certainly, Republicans cannot be happy with the polling data they're getting out of Florida and Texas. These states, which were always, I think, closer than people really understood, they kind of are seen as Republican states, but they're sort of not really that far away from some of these other states. We've made really significant gains in these places. Whether it's enough for us to win, we're going to find out, but certainly that's exciting and promising information. And then I think finally, on the third major piece, is that we're slightly ahead and momentum is good, and we're executing a great campaign, and our candidate is performing at a very high level. We've gotten really encouraging economic. We continue to get just a rash of incredibly encouraging economic news. The inflation data today was lower than people expected. We just had a revision of the gross domestic product over the last few years showing that growth under Joe Biden was actually higher than people anticipated. And we now know that growth in the United States was higher under Joe Biden than was anticipated prior to the pandemic. We're actually beating the projections for GDP growth done before the pandemic. So our recovery in the economy during Joe Biden has been remarkable. And one of the things I have in my post today at Hopium is a chart showing that we are actually, for American consumers, they're spending less of their paycheck on groceries today than they were under Trump for most of Trump's presidency. And that's because there's been such huge gains in wages and in wealth during this period. And so, yes, we've gotten a lot of coverage about how prices have gone up. We've gotten far less coverage about how well the American people have done during this period. And it's another reminder that under Joe Biden, we're far better off today than we were under Donald Trump. And so I think the key to me now about what happens next, as we're in 40 plus days or 30 something days to go, is that we just have a far greater capacity to close strong than they do. We have meaningful advantages on money, volunteers on the ground, the grassroots, all of us, right? In terms of enthusiasm, the crowd sizes, which we know are really important in these elections now. And we should be able to, over the next 6 weeks, 7 weeks, to close stronger than they do, to move the election towards us through the work that we do. And one of the reasons why is that Kamala Harris has become very popular. Her favorability numbers have surged in the last few weeks. The more she's on the stage, the more favorable she gets. It's kind of it's one of the most remarkable things happening in our politics today. There is an old belief that we may never see ever again a presidential candidate or a president in positive territory on favorabilities. Well, she's in positive territory. Tim Walz is in positive territory. And this also makes our ability to close strong far greater than theirs because our candidates are like, people want to hear from us. There's a positive, joyful vibe about us that is attractive and brings people along while they continue to be the ugliest political thing that all of us have ever seen. The second sort of important thing about closing strong for us is we've also gotten 2 polls this week, high quality, large sample polls of young people and Black voters showing Kamala Harris with young people way above Biden 2020. incredibly strong shape. She's made enormous gains in the Harvard IOP poll this week, meaning that we could have an unbelievably strong performance of young people in this election. And we also had a Howard University poll of Black Americans in the battlegrounds that put Harris at or above Biden 2020. Neither of these polls showed erosion. Both of these polls suggested that many of the polls that are being done right now, are underestimating her strength with young people and with African American or Black voters in the United States. Deeply encouraging data. The third bit of data that was very important to me that I saw this week was this poll from the NBC News about how well that 51% of voters say they're going to vote early this year, and we're winning those voters by 25 points. And the NBC News analysis said that basically that Republicans are going to potentially get so far behind in the early vote they won't be able to catch up, which is the whole theory of what we've been talking about here, about trying to win the election in October, not in November. We have to prosecute our advantage right now, our financial advantage, our vibes advantage, our organizational strength, and keep talking to voters, keep raising money, keep making the calls, keep writing the postcards, keep doing all these things that we do in a time when people want to hear from us. We literally can make this election more democratic through the work that we do in the coming weeks, and hopefully win the early vote in such a way that we win this election in October and not in November. That's part of how we did so well in 2022, is that we really won the midterms, or did so well in the battlegrounds in the midterms in October. We ran up the score in the early vote and they couldn't catch up. It was really an impressive performance, and I feel like we're headed that way now in this election too. And so I think that when I assess things, right, about where we are, our team is stronger than their team. Our team is more popular than their team. Our candidate is performing at an unbelievable level. Trump, on the other hand, is campaigning at about 1/3 the rate that he was doing in 2016. Last month, we outraised them by 4-1 at the presidential level. They're not raising the amount of money they need to be competitive. We learned today that their ad buys are declining rather than rising the ways ours are, and we're reaching more people. Theirs are actually declining. And Trump has spent an enormous amount of time in recent weeks hawking things to his supporters: sneakers, watches, coins, Bibles, picture books, cryptocurrency, his ridiculous fraudulent stock that he has. He's been selling this stuff to his supporters, which is money that's going into his pocket and not into the campaign, not into the Republican Party. He's siphoning off potentially tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars into his own pocket rather than putting it into the campaign in a time where they're struggling to raise money and they're losing the election. And, I keep looking at this as somebody who's been doing this for a long time. And the most plausible explanation for what he's doing, particularly this new watch thing in the last couple of days, is that he thinks he's going to lose. And he knows this political grift that he's been undertaking for the last 9 years is about to go away. And so he's milking it for all that he can. I mean, it is unbelievable 6 weeks out that Donald Trump is siphoning off political money from his supporters into his own pocket as opposed to putting it into the campaign. We've never seen anything like this before. And then this morning he had this unbelievably embarrassing episode where he went on this unhinged, crazy rant in front of President Zelensky after their meeting, reminding all of us just how unfit and unwell he is, that he's a rapist, a fraudster, a traitor, and a felon. He is an extremist. He is the ugliest political thing all of us have ever seen. And it's just eternal shame to Republicans who rally behind this terrible, awful man. And what he just did to President Zelensky this morning, and frankly to the image of the United States of America, something that he has inherited, and like all of his other inheritance, he's pissing it away, is that it is unbelievable, his performance this morning. It's outrageous. And it's a reminder of how much I feel that Trump, there are times when I've always, you look at Trump's outrageous behavior, and I would say over all these years, what's the explanation for it? And if the answer in your head is, well, he actually works with or for Vladimir Putin and is trying to destroy the country, it actually provides a plausible explanation. I mean, think about when you really pull apart what he's proposing right now. What Donald Trump is proposing and wants to do if he becomes the leader of the country again, however he gets there, is that he wants to end the global economy that has made us prosperous. He wants to end the Western alliance that's kept us safe. And he wants to end American democracy, which has kept us free. What American patriot would be for these things? And the answer is that he's not a patriot, that he's a traitor, and that his loyalties lie elsewhere and not to us. And that this is an essential part of what we have to do to prosecute in the coming days. And so, friends, I just want to head into the weekend by saying, I feel really good. I'm incredibly optimistic about what I'm seeing. I've been on winning campaigns and losing campaigns. I've been on both sides. Our thing feels like a winning campaign. Their thing feels like a losing campaign to me, right? In every way is that we evaluate these things. But the key here is that right now we may be winning and things may feel good, but it's just an opportunity. We know this from our own experiences that elections just don't happen. We have to make them happen. Hopium is hope with a plan. We don't believe that elections turn out well. We do the work to make it so. And so the key now is that we need to operate from this place of joy, not worry. There's no reason to be worried at any of the data that we're seeing. There's no reason for there to be worry. Do not seek worry in these closing weeks. Seek joy, seek pride, seek confidence, right? Seek a sense of love of country and patriotism. These emotions are far more powerful than worry and joy. And if you want to help close strong, one of the most important ways you can help close strong and win this election in October is spend your time choosing joy and pride and confidence and strength and not worry and fear. That's what they want. When you're worried and fearful, that's what MAGA wants you to feel. What I want you to feel, what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz wants you to feel, what Jamie Harrison wants you to feel is this joy and love of country that is these far more powerful emotions that we can draw from in order to close strong. We can win this election, but we need to do the work to make it so. So whatever you're going to do, don't wait to the end of October, November. If you're going to give money, do it before Tuesday night at midnight, because we have a really important filing deadline, the last major deadline of the election. The money for candidates this week matters a lot more than a month from now. They can do much more with the money. Whatever you're going to do to volunteer, do more of it, right? If you're worried, do more. Like we talk at Opium all the time. We got to do a lot more in the last 6 weeks, and we got to worry a lot less in these last 6 weeks. We can win this thing, everybody, right? Kamala Harris has been a historic and extraordinary leader for us in a time of enormous crisis. When history calls, sometimes people step up and sometimes they don't. She has really stepped up and she's done it for all of us. And now we got to do our part and go out and win this election together. It's been great to be in this journey with all of you. I do want to put in a plug, if you watch this, that this weekend, my series with Tara McGowan and Courier Newsroom, Closing Strong, we're releasing interviews with Ben Wickler and Julie Chavez Rodriguez, the campaign manager, the Harris Walz campaign. It's an amazing episode. It'll be really inspiring to you. Look for it at Hopium or on YouTube. And friends, remember, what is the most important thing, right? When we fight, we win. Have a good weekend, all. Thanks so much for what you do. Let's keep fighting.